Okay, it's the 5th of July 2023, and the three lessons for today are: number one, in order to be able to execute a full day's work, I need to have a conversation between the different parts of myself for a few minutes at the start of the day. Now, so I was finding myself that over the last 2 weeks, just going back into my old habits of procrastinating, and it's like sometimes I would just sort of power through it using willpower, but it was always a case of like I was like saying doing a few hours of something, and then if I didn't get that finished, I would just carry on doing that thing instead of keeping to my old structure, because I was like, oh well, this is important. I was just being blown all over the place, really. So I find that very frustrating because I think that leads to wasting time, because at any point in the day when I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing, my default would be to just like consume something on the internet. So I did a bit of research into this, and one of the advices is to have a conversation between different parts of myself, because, for example, say if like I want to get some like high priority work done, but then I also want to make time to say do this other project which I really want to get done, and then I also want to make time to socialize, and I also want to go to the gym. They're all different like parts of me. It's like I'm in my own company, and I've like got all these different parts of me like asking to do things. Like there's a part of me that really wants to socialize, but what I realized after introspecting on it was the part of me that wants to socialize doesn't get permission from the part of me that does the high priority work, and the part of me who wants to do the high priority work is not getting permission from the guy who wants to procrastinate, because he doesn't trust the other parts of me to execute. So I went through this exercise of actually you go into those different parts and you actually have a conversation between the different parts, and you actually have to go into the feeling and the sensation of how it feels to be that part of you. And I was like, I went into the part of me that procrastinates, and I was like, okay, well, can you uh, can you give permission to the high priority work guy to do 4 hours work in the morning if he promises to allow the guy who wants to socialize tonight to go out? Can you allow it? And I just kind of went through it really like it's almost weird in the way you're doing it, because you're talking like to these different personalities in your own head. But I found that really worked. Like on top of like doing a lot of the releases from the program Transformation Mastery recently, and doing a lot of that, like letting go of desire, like the sensations that arise during wanting things, those sensations that arise in your body. It's like feeling into them and accepting them, and therefore letting them go through the feeling sensation of them, and not resisting them. But anyway, so that was number one, was to have chats between different parts of you, and kind of almost like they are literally different people, and make like agreements like, all right, I'll do the work, I promise to do the 4 hours work, but you've got to allow me, the other part of you, to then go out at 8 o'clock. And what I was finding was that like I almost never allow myself to go out because I feel like I haven't deserved it, and because the part of me that I sort of I trust to do the hard work doesn't actually do it all the time. So I thought that was really interesting. That was like a real game changer. It felt like maybe I stayed on course today, so it must have worked today. Maybe on my next video I'll say that didn't work, but that did work, to have a conversation between the different parts of you. Number two was to let go of the attachment to labels like deep work and shallow work, because today, my number one goal was to really um, send the money to the guy who was going to do the mixing and send him a few of the tracks. Right now, part of that process was actually going on Facebook Marketplace and trying to sell something. So, that therefore would give me more money to then pay the guy to mix it. So that was technically shallow work, and it wasn't like, how they recommend when you get up you should do your deep work, like your creative work. That was technically, I was doing work at the start of the day that was, but the thing is, I don't think that matters for me, because in an ideal world where you've got everything sorted, then you want to spend the first few hours doing your deep work, highly creative stuff. But if your number one goal involves a bit of shallow work, then sometimes you just have to go and do that bit of shallow work. I mean, sometimes these definitions, like what is shallow work and what is deep work, you don't want to overthink them too much. But like, basically, what I'm saying is sometimes you might have a deep work session that might involve you having to do like a little bit of shallow work, but for me, that's fine. Don't stress about it. And then number 3 was, today, like, as part of excited to post something too that I'm going to sell on the internet. And when I was stuck in a really long queue, and it was longer than usual at the post office, and I just thought this is just a good time for me to not resist being in this long queue, because it's just like a perfect chance to do it. So I just tried to stand in that queue and just, enjoy it as much as I could, not complain about it, and just feel the sensations of annoyance that will inevitably come up. And they did, but you just feel them, and I just felt them. And then there was a girl like behind me in the queue. I chatted to her a little bit, so it wasn't a total waste of time. And what I noticed was that the old lady who was in front of me was constantly going, oh, come on. And she was really old lady. I was thinking maybe it gets more frustrating as you get older, because you've only got a few years left, so you're like, come on. But yeah, she was, old lady in front of me was just so frustrated at being in this queue. And when I kind of noticed that, I was like, I'm glad that I don't feel like that as much today, because that must be really like unpleasant to like be in that constant mind state of just wanting to get there, wanting to get somewhere, like being annoyed that you're in a queue, and then being annoyed that you're back at home, you got to do some work, and then being like, I do get into that a lot, a lot. But today, I was not in that state. I felt good. It felt good. And another thing to add is that, like, these videos, usually when people post on YouTube, it's because they're in a productive session. So you don't always see on YouTube the videos from when people have really had a bad day or not even tried, because obviously they've not made a video because they haven't tried. You see what I mean? So remembering that was useful, I think, because sometimes I think you can go on YouTube and you can see all the people who seem to just be making great videos, but that's only you're only seeing the good side of their output, if you know what I mean. Okay, so that's the video for today. Thank you.